Hey everyone, my name is Sarah Mitchell, and at 28, I'm the CEO of a tech startup that's changing the game for small businesses across America. But let me take you back to where it all began, to a story of being underestimated by the people who should have believed in me most, my own parents. If you've ever felt like you had to fight twice as hard for something handed to someone else, drop a comment below and let me know where you're tuning in from. Hit that like button if you've ever turned rejection into rocket fuel. This is the story of how my parents paid for my sister's business but refused to help me, and how that betrayal became the spark for everything I've achieved. I grew up in a picture-perfect middle-class neighborhood in Columbus, Ohio, in a 2-story brick house with a manicured lawn and a white mailbox that screamed suburban bliss. From the outside, the Mitchell family looked like a Hallmark card. Mom Margaret, a part-time graphic designer with a knack for baking. Dad, David, a logistics manager who loved his spreadsheets. And us 2 daughters, me and Emily, 2 years younger. And the undisputed star of the show. Our annual Christmas card photos with forced smiles and matching sweaters hid a truth that shaped my entire life. My parents always chose Emily over me. It wasn't just favoritism. It was a system as clear and cold as the Ohio winters. Emily was their golden child with sparkling green eyes, perfect grades, and a charm that won over teachers, neighbors, and even the grumpy cashier at the grocery store. She was the daughter they paraded at family gatherings, the one whose every milestone was a cause for celebration. Me. I was the practical one, taller with plain brown hair, quiet determination, and a habit of fading into the background. The disparity started early. I was 10 when Emily got a shiny new bike for her birthday, complete with streamers and a bell. My gift. A secondhand backpack handed over with a pat on the head. "You're responsible enough to handle it, Sarah." Mom said, her smile tight. I swallowed the hurt, but it planted a seed deep inside me, a quiet resolve to prove I was worth more than their afterthoughts. It wasn't just about gifts. Emily's piano recitals were family events with Dad taking half days off to cheer her on, Mom snapping photos like a paparazzi. My debate team victories. Barely a footnote. I'd come home with a first-place trophy from a regional competition at 15 heart-pounding with pride, only to hear Dad say debating's great, Sarah, but it's not a career. His eyes were already back on his newspaper, as if my achievement was a minor inconvenience. Mom would nod along, adding, "Emily's talents need more nurturing." You understand, don't you? I understood all right. I understood that in their eyes, I was the spare, the one who didn't warrant their time or pride. By 12, I'd learned to hide my disappointment, but each slight carved a little deeper, building a reservoir of determination I didn't even know I had. The only person who truly saw me was my Aunt Clara, Dad's older sister, who lived an hour away in a cozy farmhouse surrounded by cornfields. Every summer, we'd spend a week with her, and those days were my sanctuary. While Emily splashed in the creek or charmed Clara's neighbors, I'd sit on her porch sketching business ideas in a notebook, lemonade stands, app concepts, anything that felt like a path to independence. Clara would listen, her warm eyes sparkling as I rambled about wanting to start a company someday. "You've got a fire in you, Sarah," she'd say, pouring me another glass of iced tea. "Don't let anyone snuff it out." She'd tell me stories of women who built empires from nothing, and I'd hang on every word, dreaming of a future where my worth wasn't tied to my parents' approval. High school made the favoritism impossible to ignore. Emily got private SAT tutors, her sessions scheduled around her extracurriculars like she was royalty. I studied alone in the public library using free online resources and dog-eared test prep books. When I won a regional entrepreneurship contest at 16 with a mock business plan for a tech app that streamlined small business operations, I thought it might finally make them see me. My economics teacher, Ms. Larson, was so impressed she called home to congratulate me. "Sarah's work is exceptional," she told Mom. "She's got a real talent for business." I stood in the kitchen, heart racing, waiting for their reaction. "That's nice, Sarah," Mom said, barely looking up from her laptop. "Did you remind Emily about her music audition tomorrow?" "It's a big deal." Dad didn't even glance my way. The dismissal was a gut punch, but I channeled it into fuel. If they wouldn't see my potential, I'd make it impossible to ignore. I started working weekends at a local bookstore shelving novels and ringing up customers to save for a future I knew I'd have to fund myself. The $8 an hour wasn't much, but every paycheck felt like a step toward freedom. I'd stay late studying in the break room, determined to keep my 4.0 GPA despite the exhaustion. Meanwhile, Emily joined the school's theater club, and every performance was a family pilgrimage. Mom and Dad would rearrange their schedules, clapping like she'd won an Oscar, while my debate tournaments, where I was consistently ranked top in the state, got a passing "good job" if I was lucky. "Your sister needs the encouragement," Mom would say when I dared question the double standard. "You're so self-sufficient, Sarah. Self-sufficient by necessity, not choice," but they never saw the difference. By senior year, college applications loomed, and both Emily and I set our sights on Clarkson University, a top-tier school 2 hours away with a renowned business program. I poured my heart into my essays, detailing my self-taught coding projects, my entrepreneurship award, and my dream of building a tech company that empowered small businesses. Emily, with her polished resume of parent-funded extracurriculars, applied to the same program. We both got in, and for one fleeting moment, I thought my acceptance might finally earn me their pride. I announced my news at dinner, voice trembling with excitement. I got into Clarkson's business school. Full acceptance, Dad barely looked up from his phone, scrolling through emails. "Good job, Sarah," he said, his tone flat. Mom smiled thinly. "That's great, honey." Minutes later, Emily burst through the door, waving her acceptance letter. "I'm in Clarkson's business program." The room erupted. Mom hugged her tightly, tears in her eyes, and Dad jumped up, proposing a toast to our future business star. They dragged us to a fancy restaurant to celebrate, gushing about Emily's potential, while my identical achievement faded into the background, invisible once again. 2 weeks later, the real blow came, and it's a moment I'll never forget. We were having a rare family dinner, phone set aside for once, when Dad cleared his throat, his expression serious. "We need to talk about college funding," he said, his eyes locked on Emily. "We've been saving for your education since you were little, and we're proud to cover your tuition and living expenses at Clarkson. We want you to focus on your studies without any stress." Emily beamed, oblivious to the silence enveloping me. I waited heart-pounding for my turn, assuming they'd saved for both of us. The silence stretched heavy and uncomfortable until I couldn't stand it. "What about me?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Mom's face tightened, and Dad sighed like I'd asked for the moon. "Sarah," he said slowly, "we only have enough for one of you." Emily's shown more promise, her grades, her leadership roles. "We think she's the better investment for the family." The words hit like a slap, sharp and cold. Mom reached for my hand, her touch more patronizing than comforting. "You can take out loans, Sarah. You're so independent anyway. Maybe consider a less expensive school if it's too much." Dad's final remark, delivered with a shrug, burned itself into my memory. "She's the one with potential. You'll manage." I stared at them, the weight of their betrayal crushing me. My 4.0 GPA, my entrepreneurship awards, my relentless work ethic, none of it mattered. In their eyes, I was the lesser daughter, unworthy of their faith or resources. Years of smaller rejections, forgotten recitals, ignored achievements, secondhand gifts hadn't prepared me for this ultimate dismissal. The thin threads holding my sense of family together snapped, and I felt something break inside me. That night, I locked myself in my bedroom, tears soaking my pillow as I replayed their words. "She's the one with potential. You'll manage." The unfairness was suffocating. 17 years of trying to earn their approval, of proving I was just as capable, had culminated in this, a clear verdict that I wasn't worth investing in. But in that darkness, something else stirred. Anger, yes, but also a fierce determination. If they wouldn't believe in me, I'd believe in myself. If they wouldn't invest in me, I'd become my own investor. The next morning, puffy-eyed but resolute, I sat at my desk and opened my laptop. I began researching scholarships, grants, loans, anything that could get me to Clarkson alongside Emily. I called Aunt Clara, my voice shaking, as I told her what happened. "They're wrong about you, Sarah," she said fiercely. "Dead wrong. You're going to show them what you're made of, and I'll be cheering you every step of the way." Her belief, unwavering and fierce, was the lifeline I needed. I wasn't doing this to spite my parents, though the thought crossed my mind. I was doing it to prove to myself that I was enough. The weeks that followed were a blur of action. I met with my guidance counselor, Mr. Patel, who helped me apply for every scholarship I qualified for, from local Rotary Club grants to national merit awards. I spent late nights crafting essays, my bookstore job cutting into sleep. I researched loan options, knowing my parents wouldn't co-sign. The numbers were daunting. Clarkson's tuition was $40,000 a year, plus living expenses, but giving up wasn't an option. By graduation, I'd pieced together a fragile plan, a partial academic scholarship, federal loans, and a risky private loan with a high interest rate. It was terrifying, but it was mine. Emily, meanwhile, was shopping for dorm decor with Mom, their laughter echoing through the house as I packed my secondhand suitcase. The contrast was stark, but I held my head high. This was my fight, and I was ready. As I prepared to leave for Clarkson, Mom handed me a worn quilt from the guest room. "For your new place," she said awkwardly, the only acknowledgement that I too was starting college. Dad clapped me on the shoulder as I loaded my decade-old Honda, which rattled ominously. "Good luck, Sarah," he said. "You'll figure it out." No offer to check my car. No care package, no celebration. Just, "You'll manage." As I drove away, their figures shrinking in my rearview mirror, I made a silent vow. I wouldn't just manage. I'd triumph. And when I did, they'd see exactly what they'd underestimated. The road to Clarkson University was a gauntlet of obstacles I hadn't fully anticipated when I left my parents' house. My old Honda, rattling under the weight of secondhand suitcases and a heart full of defiance. Their words, "She's the one with potential." "You'll manage" echoed in my mind, not as a wound now, but as a challenge. I wasn't just going to Clarkson to get a degree, I was going to build a future that proved my worth not to them, but to myself. The journey was grueling, a test of endurance that would shape me in ways I couldn't yet imagine, but every step forward felt like a rebellion against their verdict. Arriving at Clarkson was a shock to the system. While Emily moved into a sleek dormitory with air-conditioned lounges and a meal plan funded by our parents, I settled into a cramped off-campus apartment 40 minutes away by bus. The place was a far cry from the glossy campus brochures peeling wallpaper, a faucet that dripped relentlessly, and a musty smell that lingered no matter how much I cleaned. My two roommate strangers I'd found through a university housing forum were friendly enough, but kept to themselves, their lives a mystery beyond the occasional shared pizza. The rent was $400 a month, a steal compared to dorms, but it stretched my budget to the breaking point. To cover it, plus textbooks and the looming loan payments, I'd lined up 2 jobs before classes even started weekday mornings at a campus cafe. Steaming milk and dodging grumpy professors, and weekends at a tech repair shop where I fixed cracked phone screens and troubleshooted sluggish laptops. The schedule was punishing 5 a.m. wake-ups classes squeezed between shifts and studying until past midnight, but I had no choice. This was the price of proving I could do it alone. Freshman year hit like a freight train. My days were a blur of coffee steam lecture notes and the constant hum of financial stress. I lived on instant noodles and the occasional free pastry from the cafe, my social life non-existent except for hurried conversations with coworkers. Sleep was a luxury often limited to 4 hours before the cycle began again. Emily, meanwhile, was thriving in her cushioned world. I'd catch glimpses of her on campus laughing with sorority sisters or carrying shopping bags from weekend trips home, care packages from Mom and Dad tucked under her arm. Once she texted me a photo of a new laptop Dad had bought her captioned, "So excited for this." I stared at the screen my own ancient laptop bought, used for $200, whirring ominously beside me. I didn't reply. What could I say? Her life was a parallel universe, one where resources were endless and failure wasn't a specter lurking around every corner. The contrast stung, but I refused to let it define me. Aunt Clara's voice was my anchor, her words from our last phone call replaying in my head. "You're stronger than their doubts, Sarah." I clung to that, especially on nights when exhaustion made my vision blur. To stay afloat, I became a master of efficiency. I did readings on the bus, scribbling notes between jolts. I recorded lectures to listen to while cleaning espresso machines, my earbuds drowning out the cafe's chatter. Every minute was accounted for, every dollar budgeted. My spreadsheet, meticulously updated each week, was my lifeline tracking expenses down to the cent. $50 for groceries, $20 for bus fare, $10 for laundry. Fun was a foreign concept, but survival was its own kind of thrill. A lifeline came in the form of Mia Torres, a fellow business major I met during a late-night study session in the library. I dozed off over my economics textbook, my cheek pressed against the page when a gentle tap woke me. "You okay?" Mia asked, sliding a granola bar across the table. Her dark eyes were kind but sharp, like she'd seen her share of struggle. Exhausted and unguarded, I spilled my story, the loans, the jobs, my parents' betrayal. Mia listened without judgment, her own story tumbling out in return. She'd grown up in foster care, funding her education through scholarships and sheer grit. "You're not alone," she said firmly, her voice cutting through my fog of self-pity. "Let's make a pact we push each other to the top." From that night, Mia became my rock. We studied together, proofread each other's assignments, and celebrated small wins like when I scored a 98 on my first coding exam. Her friendship was a reminder that family isn't always blood, it's the people who see you and stay. In my Intro to Entrepreneurship class, I found my calling. Professor Nguyen, a former startup founder with a no-nonsense demeanor, challenged us to pitch a business idea by semester's end. I drew on my repair shop experience where I'd seen small business owners struggle with outdated systems, clunky websites, manual inventory tracking, no online presence. My idea was TechBridge, a platform offering affordable tech solutions like website setups and e-commerce integrations tailored for mom-and-pop shops. I spent weeks refining the pitch coding, a mock-up on free software, and practicing in front of Mia until I could deliver it without stuttering. When I presented, the room was silent, Professor Nguyen's pen poised over her notepad. "This solves a real problem," she said afterward, pulling me aside. "You've got a knack for spotting needs others miss. Keep at it." Her belief in me was a spark igniting a vision I hadn't dared fully embrace. TechBridge wasn't just a class project, it was my future. Encouraged, I launched a bare-bones version of TechBridge during spring semester, using $200 from my savings and free coding tools. It was a side hustle offering basic website setups for local businesses. My first client, a bakery near campus called Sweet Haven, paid $50 for a site that let customers order online. Within a month, their orders tripled, and the owner, Mrs. Delaney, hugged me like I'd saved her business. Word spread, and soon I had 3 more clients, a florist, a hardware store, a dog groomer. Each job brought in $50 to $100, enough to cover a week's groceries or a loan payment. Balancing TechBridge with school and work was like juggling knives, but every deposit felt like a middle finger to my parents' dismissal. I wasn't just managing, I was building. Disaster struck midway through the year. The campus cafe, citing budget cuts, slashed my hours by a third, dropping my income from $400 to $250 a month. Rent was due in 2 weeks, and a $600 loan payment loomed. Panic clawed at me, the numbers in my spreadsheet turning red no matter how I crunched them. I couldn't afford to lose my apartment, and dropping classes wasn't an option. I'd lose my scholarship. Desperate, I remembered Mr. Patel's advice to seek help before things spiraled. I booked an emergency appointment at the financial aid office, where Ms. Carter, a warm but no-nonsense administrator, reviewed my case. "Your grades are stellar, Sarah," she said, peering over her glasses. "You qualify for a $1,000 emergency grant." She also connected me with a paid internship at Clarkson's Innovation Lab, a hub for student-led tech projects. The internship paid $15 an hour, nearly double the cafe, and involved coding for real startups. Grateful, I accepted quitting the cafe to focus on the lab and the repair shop. The Innovation Lab was a game changer. I worked under Dr. Patel, a tech professor who mentored students with startup dreams. My first project was building an app for a local nonprofit, which taught me advanced coding techniques I applied to TechBridge. The flexible hours let me attend classes without missing shifts, and the lab's collaborative vibe students, brainstorming over pizza whiteboards covered in code, felt like home. Dr. Patel noticed my hustle. "You're not just here for a paycheck," he said one evening, watching me debug code at 9 p.m. "What's driving you?" I hesitated, then told him about TechBridge and my parents' rejection. He nodded, unsurprised. "Use that fire, Sarah. It'll take you further than money ever could." TechBridge grew steadily, now serving 6 clients by sophomore year. I upgraded the platform to include e-commerce integrations, teaching myself new code from YouTube tutorials. A local diner paid $200 for a site with online ordering, and their sales spiked 40%. Each success bolstered my confidence, but the grind was relentless. I'd collapse into bed at 1 a.m. only to wake 4 hours later. My health took a hit, headaches, a persistent cough, but I couldn't afford a doctor. Mia noticed slipping vitamins into my bag and cooking extra portions of her family's Puerto Rican arroz con pollo. "You're not burning out on my watch," she'd say, her tone half joking, half fierce. Her support, combined with Professor Nguyen's mentorship, kept me going when doubt crept in. Emily's life, meanwhile, was a stark contrast. She joined a sorority, her Instagram filled with photos of formals and beach trips, all funded by our parents. She'd text me occasionally, inviting me to campus events I couldn't attend. You should come to our spring mixer, she'd write, oblivious to my 60-hour weeks. Once she mentioned mom and dad sending her $500 for school supplies, which she spent on a designer bag. I was skipping meals to afford a new textbook, and the resentment bubbled, though I tried to bury it. Emily wasn't the enemy, she was a product of the same system that sidelined me. Still, her carefree ease was a constant reminder of what I'd been denied. Family interactions grew colder. During Thanksgiving break, Mom called Emily home, booking her a train ticket and promising her favorite pecan pie. I wasn't invited, just a text from Dad, hope you're doing okay at school. I spent the holiday with Mia's family in Cleveland, where her mom, Rosa, welcomed me like a daughter. Over homemade tamales, Rosa asked about my dreams, listening intently as I described TechBridge. You're a warrior, mija, she said, squeezing my hand. Don't let anyone dim your light. The warmth of that table, surrounded by people who believed in me, was a stark contrast to my parents' indifference. It fueled me to keep pushing to turn TechBridge into something undeniable. By the end of sophomore year, TechBridge had 8 clients and brought in $1,500 a month, enough to cover rent and chip away at my loans. I presented the platform at a regional startup showcase, winning a $2,000 grant from a local business council. Professor Nguyen connected me with Mr. Yao Caldwell, a retired tech CEO who mentored young entrepreneurs. Over coffee, he reviewed my business plan, his feedback blunt but encouraging. You're solving a real problem for small businesses, he said. Scale smart, and this could be big. His belief, paired with Mia's unwavering support, made the impossible feel within reach. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was thriving, building a future brick by brick, with no one's help but my own. My parents had bet on the wrong daughter, and I was determined to make them see it not for their approval, but for the girl who'd once believed she wasn't enough. Junior year at Clarkson University marked a turning point where the paths of Emily and me diverged so starkly that even our parents' willful blindness couldn't ignore the cracks forming in their carefully curated narrative. TechBridge, my scrappy startup born from late-night coding and sheer determination, was gaining momentum, each new client a testament to my ability to thrive without the support my sister took for granted. Meanwhile, Emily's business, propped up by our parents' money and their unwavering faith, was unraveling, exposing the fragility of a foundation built on privilege rather than perseverance. The divide between us wasn't just financial. It was a chasm of effort, accountability, and the harsh truth about what happens when potential is assumed rather than earned. TechBridge had grown from a side hustle into a legitimate operation by the start of my 3rd year. I was now serving 15 small businesses across Ohio, from a family-owned bookstore in Dayton to a craft brewery in Cincinnati. The platform offered not just websites, but e-commerce integrations and basic analytics tools that helped clients boost sales by as much as 50%. With the $2,000 grant from the regional startup showcase and steady revenue now averaging $3,000 a month, I hired a part-time developer, a quiet computer science major named Liam, who worked remotely for $15 an hour. This freed me to focus on strategy and client outreach. Though my schedule remained relentless classes, my innovation lab internship, repair shop shifts, and TechBridge consumed every waking hour. I'd traded instant noodles for slightly better groceries, but rest was still a distant dream, my days fueled by coffee and Mia's pep talks. Professor Nguyen, my entrepreneurship mentor, saw TechBridge's potential and pushed me to aim higher. She recommended I apply to a local startup accelerator, Innovate Ohio, which offered mentorship and a shot at a $5,000 grant. Mia and I spent weeks polishing my pitch, rehearsing in our apartment until the words flowed like second nature. The presentation was nerve-wracking, 10 minutes in front of a panel of stone-faced investors, but I nailed it, highlighting how TechBridge empowered small businesses overlooked by big tech firms. When they announced I'd won the grant, I called Aunt Clara, who whooped so loudly I had to hold the phone away from my ear. "You're unstoppable, Sarah," she said. The money went straight into TechBridge funding, a server upgrade, and a basic marketing campaign that landed me 5 new clients. Innovate Ohio also paired me with a mentor, Ms. Rivera, a tech executive who taught me how to negotiate contracts and forecast growth. Her no-nonsense advice, focus on cash flow, not ego, became my mantra. While TechBridge flourished Emily's business, Emily's elegance was spiraling. Our parents had given her $20,000 to launch a boutique clothing brand, a venture they touted as her ticket to entrepreneurial stardom. At family gatherings, Mom would gush about Emily's visionary designs, showing off photos of her website, which gleamed with professional polish thanks to a hired developer. But beneath the surface, the business was a mess. Emily had no experience managing operations, and her strategy leaned heavily on Instagram influencers who demanded free products but delivered little return. She hired friends as staff more for loyalty than skill, and their inexperience led to delayed orders and shoddy quality. By mid-semester, customer complaints were piling up and her online reviews tanked. I heard about it through a cousin who forwarded me a scathing post on a local fashion forum. Ordered a dress 3 months ago, still nothing. Worst brand ever. I felt a pang of sympathy, but also frustration she'd been given every advantage and was squandering it. Our parents, however, remained oblivious. At a family barbecue over Labor Day, they bragged about Emily's thriving empire to our extended family, conveniently ignoring the red flags. Dad clapped Emily on the back, saying, "Our girl's going to be the next big name in fashion." Mom nodded, passing around her phone with photos of Emily posing at a pop-up shop. I stood on the sidelines sipping lemonade, my own achievements unmentioned. Uncle Mark, a gruff but fair contractor, pulled me aside. "Clara says you're running some tech thing," he said, eyeing me curiously. "What's that about?" I explained TechBridge, briefly mentioning the accelerator grant. His eyebrows shot up. "Sounds like you're the one making waves. Why don't your folks talk about it?" I shrugged, unwilling to air the family's dirty laundry. "They're focused on Emily," I said. He snorted. "Their loss." The tension escalated at our cousin's wedding in October, a lavish affair at a vineyard. Emily, dressed in one of her brand's designs, floated through the crowd, charming aunts and uncles. I wore a thrifted dress, too busy with TechBridge to shop. During the reception, Dad cornered me near the dessert table, his tone patronizing. "Sarah, you should help Emily with her website," he said. "She's struggling with the tech side, and you're good at that stuff." The implication that my skills were only valuable as a prop for Emily's success hit like a slap. I took a deep breath, keeping my voice steady. "Dad, I'm running my own company, taking 15 credits and working 2 jobs. I don't have time to fix her site." He frowned as if I'd been unreasonable. "Family helps family. Sarah." I walked away, my hands shaking. Later, Emily approached her expression a mix of frustration and entitlement. "Mom says you're a wizard with websites. Why won't you help me?" I met her gaze. "Emily, I built TechBridge from nothing while working 40 hours a week. If you need help, hire someone. I'm stretched thin as it is." She huffed and stormed off, but I saw a flicker of doubt in her eyes, a crack in her confidence. That doubt became undeniable when Emily's elegance hit a crisis. A major order for a bridal boutique 500 custom scarves was botched due to a supplier mix-up, costing her $10,000 and a key client. Customers flooded her site with 1-star reviews, and a local newspaper ran a story, "Local fashion brand faces backlash over delays." Emily called Mom in tears, and our parents without hesitation wired her another $5,000 to get back on track. I heard about it from Aunt Clara, who was furious. "They're throwing good money after bad," she said. "And they haven't asked about your business once, have they?" I admitted they hadn't. Clara's voice softened. "Keep going, Sarah. They'll see the truth eventually." The bailout galled me not because I wanted their money, but because it enabled Emily's recklessness while my hustle went ignored. TechBridge was profitable, sustainable, and growing, yet in their eyes, I was still the daughter who'd manage. The turning point came during spring break when I was invited to present TechBridge at a national tech conference in Chicago, an honor that included travel funding from Clarkson. It was a big deal. Hundreds of industry leaders, investors, and startups converging to showcase innovation. Mia and I celebrated with cheap pizza toasting to making them eat their words. I spent weeks preparing, refining my demo, and practicing my pitch until I could deliver it in my sleep. The conference was exhilarating. I networked with CEOs, swapped ideas with other founders, and presented TechBridge to a packed room. My session, titled "Empowering Small Businesses Through Tech," drew applause when I shared how a client, a rural hardware store, doubled its revenue with my platform. Afterward, a small venture capital firm, Blue Wave Ventures, approached me. Their partner, Mr. Ellison, handed me his card. "Your model's impressive," he said. "We're interested in a $50,000 investment for a 10% stake pending a growth plan." I was floored, barely managing a coherent thank you. That night, I called Clara, who screamed with pride. "This is your moment, Sarah." My parents, informed by Clara, sent a tepid text. "Congrats on your conference thing." No questions, no curiosity, just a perfunctory nod. Emily's struggles, meanwhile, were becoming impossible to hide. The newspaper article sparked a wave of cancellations, and her brand lost 2 major retailers. She withdrew from a marketing class to focus on damage control, her grades slipping further. At a family dinner in April, Mom tried to spin the narrative. "Emily's learning so much from these challenges," she said, her smile forced. "It's all part of the entrepreneurial journey." Dad nodded, avoiding my eyes. Uncle Mark, emboldened by a few glasses of wine, cut in. "What about Sarah's journey? I hear she's got investors knocking." The table went quiet. Dad laughed nervously. "Oh, Sarah's got her little tech project. She's doing fine." I didn't correct him, but Mia, who'd joined us, shot me a look that said, "They're clueless." Later, she texted, "Your parents are living in a fantasy. Keep killing it." I smiled, her words a reminder of the support that mattered. The dinner wasn't the only clash. Emily, under pressure, lashed out during a rare campus coffee meetup. "You're so lucky everything's working out for you," she snapped, stirring her latte. "Some of us have real problems." I stared, incredulous. Lucky Emily. I work 60 hours a week, live in a dump, and haven't slept properly in 2 years. You got $25,000 from Mom and Dad. "What's your excuse?" she flinched, her bravado crumbling. "I didn't ask for it," she muttered. "They just expect me to be perfect." For the first time, I saw her not as the golden child, but as a kid trapped by their expectations. I softened but didn't back down. "You've got resources I'd kill for. Use them wisely or you'll lose more than a business." She nodded, eyes downcast, and we parted in uneasy silence. As senior year loomed, I accepted Blue Wave's $50,000 investment, signing the deal after weeks of negotiations guided by Ms. Rivera. The funds let me hire a second developer and expand TechBridge's services to include social media integrations, attracting a chain of Ohio bakeries as a client. Clarkson nominated me for the Outstanding Entrepreneur Award, and my grades held strong at a 3.9 GPA. Emily, meanwhile, delayed her graduation, dropping 2 classes to salvage her brand, which was hemorrhaging money. Our parents planned a lavish comeback party for her, inviting extended family to celebrate her resilience. I got a last-minute invite, a clear afterthought. "We figured you were busy," Mom said when I called her on it. I declined, citing a client meeting. The truth, I was done playing second fiddle. TechBridge was my priority, and I was building something they couldn't ignore even if they tried. The divide between Emily and me wasn't just about success or failure, it was about accountability. I'd clawed my way up with no safety net, every win hard-earned. Emily, cushioned by our parents' faith, hadn't learned to stand on her own. But as her world crumbled and mine soared, I sensed a shift. The truth was creeping in, and soon even our parents would have to face it. For now, I focused on TechBridge, my clients, and the future I was crafting, one where my worth wasn't defined by their approval, but by the impact I made. Senior year at Clarkson University was a whirlwind of triumph and reckoning, where the seeds of my relentless hustle with TechBridge blossomed into a success that no one, not even my parents, could ignore. The gap between Emily's faltering path and my ascendant one grew undeniable, and as my startup soared, the family dynamics that once sidelined me began to crack under the weight of my achievements. This wasn't just about proving them wrong. It was about claiming a future I'd built from scratch, one that culminated in a moment of vindication at our family reunion, where the truth of my parents' misjudgment was laid bare for all to see. TechBridge had transformed from a scrappy side hustle into a full-fledged startup by the fall of my final year. With 50 clients across Ohio and parts of Michigan, the platform now offered advanced features like automated inventory syncing and customer relationship tools, driving an average 60% revenue boost for our small business partners. The $50,000 from Blue Wave Ventures had fueled growth, allowing me to hire 2 more part-time staff, a marketing student, Priya, and a data analyst, Ethan, both Clarkson peers who shared my vision. Our tiny office near campus, rented for $500 a month, buzzed with activity laptops, humming whiteboards, scrawled with ideas and takeout containers piling up during late-night coding sessions. Revenue hit $10,000 a month, enough to cover my rent loan payments and a modest salary for my team. I'd cut back to one job at the innovation lab, dropping the repair shop to focus on scaling TechBridge, though my days still stretched from 6 a.m. to midnight. The business school faculty took notice. Professor Nguyen nominated me for the National Tech Innovator Award, a prestigious competition for young entrepreneurs. I spent weeks refining my application, detailing how TechBridge addressed a market gap for small businesses ignored by corporate tech giants. When I won securing a $25,000 prize and a feature in Tech Trend magazine, the department erupted in pride. The article titled, "From Bootstrap to Breakthrough" chronicled my journey from self-funded freshman to startup founder, noting my lack of family support with a subtle but pointed line, "Mitchell built TechBridge without financial backing, relying on scholarships, loans, and sheer grit." Dean Ellison invited me to speak at the business school's annual gala, a black tie event attended by alumni and industry leaders. Standing at the podium in a rented dress, I shared how adversity being told I'd manage had forged my resilience. The room gave a standing ovation, and afterward, a recruiter from Horizon Tech offered me a board advisory role. I declined politely, my heart set on TechBridge, but the validation was a high I'd never known. Emily's world, by contrast, was collapsing. Her clothing brand, Emily's Elegance, declared bankruptcy after a second failed relaunch attempt, leaving her with $30,000 in debt our parents couldn't fully cover. She moved back home, her confidence shattered. I learned the details from a tense phone call with Aunt Clara, who'd visited them. "Emily's a mess," Clara said. "She's embarrassed, but your parents keep coddling her, saying it's just a setback." I felt a mix of pity and frustration. Emily had been handed every opportunity, $25,000 from our parents' professional designers, a safety net, yet her lack of discipline had sunk her. Still, I didn't gloat. Her failure wasn't my victory. My success was. A surprising shift came during a late-night study session in the library where Emily, visiting campus for a sorority alumni event, tracked me down. She looked exhausted, her usual polish replaced by dark circles and a frayed sweatshirt. "Can we talk?" she asked, clutching a coffee. I nodded, bracing for another argument. Instead, she apologized. "I messed up, Sarah," she said, voice breaking. "I thought I could just charm my way through it. You were right. I had everything and blew it." I was stunned. For the first time, she acknowledged the disparity. "How do you do it?" she asked. "Keep going when it's so hard." I explained my reality, 60-hour weeks, constant financial juggling, the weight of proving myself. Her eyes widened like she was seeing me clearly. "I didn't know it was that bad," she whispered. "Mom and Dad always said you were fine." I shrugged. Fine's relative when you're on your own. The conversation didn't erase years of resentment, but it cracked open a door to understanding. I suggested she take a business course at community college, and she nodded, a spark of determination flickering. The real reckoning came at our family's annual reunion in June, held at a rented lake house on Lake Erie. Extended family, 30 aunts, uncles, cousins gathered for a weekend of barbecues and boat rides, a tradition where my parents typically held court. This year, they arrived with Emily, their narrative polished. She was regrouping after a bold entrepreneurial venture. They barely mentioned me, assuming my absence due to a TechBridge client pitch meant I was irrelevant. But Aunt Clara had other plans. She'd emailed the Tech Trend article to every relative, ensuring my story was front and center. When I arrived Saturday morning after driving straight from a meeting, the atmosphere shifted. Cousins swarmed me, asking about TechBridge. "You're in a magazine?" my 15-year-old cousin Lily gushed. Uncle Mark, beer in hand, grinned. "Heard you've got investors. That's big, Sarah." Mom and Dad, caught off guard, tried to pivot. At dinner, they toasted Emily's resilience, framing her bankruptcy as a learning experience. Dad raised his glass. "To our girl who's going to come back stronger?" The room clapped politely, but the energy felt forced. Uncle Mark, emboldened, interrupted. "What about Sarah? I hear she's running a company that's actually making money." The table fell silent. Dad laughed nervously, a sound like breaking glass. "Oh, Sarah's got her little tech thing. She's doing fine." I'd had enough. I stood, voice calm but firm. "Actually, TechBridge serves 50 clients, generates 6 figures annually, and just secured $200,000 in funding from Blue Wave Ventures. I'm the CEO." Jaws dropped. Aunt Susan clapped, sparking a wave of murmurs. "CEO," my cousin Tom whispered. Mom's face reddened, her fork frozen midair. Dad stammered, "We didn't realize." "It was that serious." Emily, to her credit, spoke up, her voice steady despite the tension. Sarah's the real success here, she said, eyes on her plate. I had every advantage, money support, and I failed. She built something amazing with nothing. The room absorbed her words, relatives exchanging glances. Uncle Mark raised his glass. To Sarah, then, for showing us what's possible. The toast was enthusiastic, a tide turning against my parents' narrative. Mom tried to recover, smiling weakly. We're proud of both our girls, she said, but the words rang hollow, drowned out by the family's newfound focus on me. For the first time, I felt seen not just by Clara or Mia, but by the people my parents had spent years shaping their story for. The momentum carried into graduation season. Dean Ellison announced I'd delivered the business school's keynote address, an honor reserved for the department's top student. The ceremony held in Clarkson's grand auditorium was electric. I wore a new gown, Aunt Clara's silver locket around my neck, a quiet reminder of her faith in me. My speech wove together lessons from my journey, how being underestimated had taught me to redefine success, how constraints bred innovation. I never mentioned my parents, but the subtext was clear. Their doubt had been my fuel. The audience, faculty, peers, industry guests rose in a standing ovation, Mia's whistle cutting through the applause. Emily, seated among the graduates, clapped fiercely, her smile genuine. After my speech, Dean Ellison took the stage for a surprise announcement. Sarah Mitchell's Tech Bridge has been acquired by Nexus Solutions, a leading tech firm, for $2 million, she said, pausing as gasps rippled through the crowd. Sarah will remain CEO of the new division, a testament to her vision and leadership. The auditorium erupted, cheers echoing off the walls. I stood frozen, the weight of it sinking in. Nexus had approached me weeks earlier, impressed by TechBridge's growth and my conference pitch. After intense negotiations guided by Ms. Rivera, I'd signed the deal, ensuring my team stayed on and our mission endured. I scanned the audience, spotting my parents in the third row, their faces pale, mouths agape. For years, they'd dismissed my little tech thing. Now the world knew it was anything but. Post-ceremony, the business school hosted a reception where faculty and alumni congratulated me. Professor Nguyen hugged me, tears in her eyes. You've made us proud, Sarah, Mr. Caldwell, my mentor, toasted to a founder who turns obstacles into empires. Emily approached her graduation cap slightly askew. You were incredible up there, she said, voice thick. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. I squeezed her hand. You're seeing it now. That's enough. My parents lingered at the edge of the crowd, their usual confidence replaced by awkward hesitance. Dad tried a jovial tone. Quite a day, Sarah. You've been busy. Mom nodded, her smile strained. We had no idea about the acquisition. I met their eyes unflinching. You never asked. The words hung between us, a quiet indictment of their indifference. As I left the reception with Mia and Clara, my phone buzzed with notifications, congratulations from clients, classmates, even distant relatives who'd read the tech trend piece. The acquisition news had gone viral on Clarkson's social media, amplifying my story. I'd done more than manage. I'd redefined what was possible. The reunion and graduation had exposed my parents' misjudgment, but the real victory was internal. I'd built TechBridge not to win their approval, but to honor the girl who refused to let their verdict define her. As we drove to a celebratory dinner, Clara squeezed my shoulder. You've changed the game, Sarah, and you're just getting started. The dust of graduation settled, and with it came a new chapter defined not by the thrill of proving my worth, but by the quiet power of living it. The $2 million acquisition of TechBridge by Nexus Solutions, my role as CEO of its new division, and the public unraveling of my parents' favoritism at the family reunion and Clarkson's ceremony had shifted the ground beneath our family. Yet the true measure of my journey wasn't in the headlines or the stunned faces of my parents, David and Margaret. It was in the choices I made next, the relationships I rebuilt, and the legacy I began to carve. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about turning pain into purpose, offering others the support I'd been denied, and learning that my value had always been mine to claim regardless of who saw it. Life post-graduation was a whirlwind. I moved into a modest but bright apartment in downtown Columbus, using part of the acquisition funds for a security deposit and simple furnishings, a far cry from the leaky, cramped place I'd endured at Clarkson. TechBridge's new division, now under Nexus's umbrella, operated from a sleek office with floor-to-ceiling windows, where my team, Mia, Liam, Priya, and Ethan worked alongside Nexus engineers to expand our platform nationwide. We were developing AI-driven analytics for small businesses, a leap from our original offerings, and the work was exhilarating. My salary, a steady $150,000 plus bonuses, brought a financial security I'd never known. For the first time, I could buy groceries without calculating every cent paid down my student loans aggressively, and even treat Mia to dinner without wincing at the bill. Yet the grind didn't stop. As CEO, I juggled client meetings, product development, and investor updates, my days often stretching past 10 p.m. The difference now was the absence of desperation. My hustle was driven by ambition, not survival. My relationship with my parents entered uncharted territory. A week after graduation, they requested a meeting at a neutral cafe in Columbus, their first genuine attempt at reconciliation since the ceremony's revelations. I arrived wary, the memory of their dismissive, "You'll manage," still sharp. Mom's hands trembled around her coffee cup. Her usual poise replaced by vulnerability. "Sarah, we've done a lot of thinking," she said softly. "We made mistakes prioritizing Emily because we thought she needed us more." Dad, less comfortable with emotion, cleared his throat. "We didn't see your potential. That was our failure." Their words were a start, but they skimmed the surface of years of neglect. I leaned forward, voice steady. "It wasn't just a mistake. You chose to invest in Emily and dismiss me entirely. You told me I wasn't worth it. I built TechBridge despite that, not because you changed your minds." Mom's eyes welled up and Dad looked away, his jaw tight. "We want to make it right," Mom said, "if you'll let us." I didn't offer absolution. Trust would take time, but I agreed to keep the door open, a cautious step toward something new. Emily's transformation was more immediate and profound. She enrolled in business courses at a community college, determined to rebuild her skills after Emily's elegance collapsed. During a visit to my apartment, she sat cross-legged on my couch clutching a textbook. I was so blind, she admitted, her voice raw. "I took Mom and Dad's money for granted, thought it'd make me successful. You're my hero, Sarah. You did it all alone." Her words softened the edges of my resentment. I saw not the golden child, but a young woman grappling with her own failures. "You don't need to be me," I said. "Find your own path, but work for it." I offered her a part-time internship at TechBridge, not out of pity, but because I believed in second chances. She accepted eagerly, starting with data entry and soaking up every lesson. Watching her take notes during team meetings, I felt a flicker of pride, not just for her, but for the sisterhood we were forging free from our parents' competitive framework. The broader impact of my journey crystallized through a decision I made that summer. Using $100,000 from the acquisition funds, I founded the Mitchell Resilience Fund at Clarkson, a scholarship for students overcoming family or financial barriers. Unlike traditional awards focused on grades alone, this fund prioritized grit students who, like me, balanced jobs, loans, and dreams against impossible odds. The first recipient, Aisha, a computer science major, working 2 jobs to support her younger brother, reminded me of my freshman self. At the fund's launch event held in Clarkson's Innovation Hub, I shared her story alongside mine. "Success isn't just about talent," I told the crowd of faculty, students, and donors. "It's about what you do when the world bets against you." Aisha, standing beside me, teared up as she accepted the $10,000 award, whispering, "This changes everything." My parents invited at Dean Ellison's. Insistence sat in the audience, their applause hesitant but genuine. Afterward, Dad approached, his voice thick. "This is meaningful, Sarah. You're helping others in a way we never did." Mom hugged me, her embrace lingering. "You've turned your pain into something beautiful." Their words mattered, but they didn't define me. The fund was for Aisha, for me, for every student told they'd manage. Reconciliation with my parents progressed slowly. Over monthly dinners, they began asking about TechBridge, real questions about clients, challenges, my vision. I answered cautiously, testing their sincerity. One evening, Mom admitted, "We saw Emily as the safe bet because she fit our idea of success. We were wrong and it hurt you deeply." "I'm sorry, Sarah." The apology, though imperfect, was a bridge. Dad, less articulate, offered to help with my apartment's lease renewal. A gesture I declined. "I've got it covered," I said, not unkindly. "But I appreciate the thought." Their efforts, coupled with Emily's growth, suggested a family evolving, however haltingly. I wasn't ready to forgive fully. The wound of "she's the one with potential" still ached, But I chose to release the expectation of a different past, a form of forgiveness that freed me more than them. My work at Nexus kept me grounded. TechBridge's AI analytics launched successfully, earning praise from clients and a feature in Forbes as a game changer for small businesses. I mentored my team, especially Mia, who was promoted to product manager. During a weekend retreat at Aunt Clara's farmhouse, now a haven of memories, she gave me a delicate silver bracelet, a family heirloom. My grandmother gave this to me when I graduated, she said, fastening it around my wrist. She said, "A woman's worth comes from within, not others' eyes." You've lived that, Sarah. Sitting on her porch watching the sunset, I reflected on how my struggles, loans, late nights, rejection had forged strengths I might never have discovered otherwise. Clara's faith, Mia's loyalty, Emily's awakening. They were the family I'd chosen, the ones who'd seen me when my parents couldn't. On the one-year anniversary of graduation, I expanded the Mitchell Resilience Fund with another $50,000, adding mentorship programs to guide recipients beyond financial aid. At the announcement ceremony, I spoke about opportunity ladders. No one succeeds alone. I said, nodding to Professor Nguyen Ms. Rivera and Clara in the crowd. But sometimes you have to build your own ladder first. My parents attended their pride untainted by comparison for the first time. Dad pulled me aside afterward. "You've created something bigger than us," he said, eyes glistening. Mom added, "You're not just successful, you're purposeful." I nodded, accepting their words without needing them. My worth wasn't theirs to validate. It never had been. Emily, now thriving in her courses and internship, joined me for a hiking trip that fall, a chance to cement our new bond. As we reached a scenic overlook, she asked, "Do you think you'll ever fully forgive them?" I paused, the wind rustling through the trees. "Forgiveness isn't a switch," I said. "It's letting go of the hope that the past could have been different." I'll always carry the hurt of being told I wasn't worth it, but I'm choosing not to let it define our future. She nodded, thoughtful. "Their biggest mistake was underestimating you," she said. "And my biggest luck is having you as my sister." We hugged the valley below us, a reminder of how far we'd come. The deepest lesson of my journey was this: your value exists independently of others' recognition. My parents' favoritism didn't diminish me. It forced me to dig deeper, uncovering resilience, ingenuity, and a purpose greater than their approval. Being underestimated was my greatest gift, not because it led to success, but because it taught me to define myself. The Mitchell Resilience Fund, my work at Nexus, my bond with Emily. They were my legacy proof that pain can be alchemized into impact. To anyone feeling unseen, know this: your potential is yours to claim, not theirs to grant. Build your ladder, climb it, and then extend it to others. That's the triumph, not proving others wrong, but proving yourself right. As I looked ahead, leading TechBridge's expansion and mentoring the next Aisha, I carried Clara's bracelet as a reminder my worth was always within me, shining through every rejection, every late night, every victory. The girl who'd once cried over "you'll manage" had become a woman who didn't just manage. She soared, lifting others with her. Thank you for being part of this journey with me, and I hope my story inspires you to see your own inherent worth no matter who fails to recognize it.